Hello and welcome to Hornsey Broadway. My name is Keir Hardy and this video has been put together as part of the Expo EM virtual show for May 2021. So before I take you for a tour of the layout and to watch a few trains go by, I'll just give you a little bit of background history as to how I've arrived at where we are today. My first exhibition layout, Calder Bridge, was a double O gauge layout, all with hand-built track. And after 5 shows, I thought to myself, why am I building all this track when I can make it look more realistic to EM gauge standards? I didn't fancy going any further down the fine scale route than that, because I like to think that everything's going to stay on the track. EM gauge is very reliable and it looks right. So, with Calder Bridge being sold off, I started my first EM gauge exhibition layout called Homeworth in the late 1980s, and that covered over 40 shows during a 10-year period, with the grand finale being in Utrecht in Holland. After Homeworth, I then started on Wibdenshaw, which many of you may have heard about. Again, EM gauge, and that did the best part of 25 to 30 shows, again over a 10-year period. But as that was drawing to a close, I decided to take the timescale back just a little bit further to my very early spotting days of the early 1970s in North London, where it brings back a lot of memories. So for me, Hornsey Broadway is a time machine, for want of a better word. With the recently constructed station section, it takes the layout to just shy of 30 feet long, and it fits within the existing hardware, the storage yards and end curves that we used on previous layouts, Homeworth and Wibdenshaw. So I've kept all of that to save having to rebuild it, and over the last 12 years I've concentrated on building the new scenic section. In addition to the 4 main loops, 2 tracks consisting of the Great Northern Route out of King's Cross and 2 tracks forming the lines to East London, there are additional loops which provide crossovers from one to the other. So there's full flexibility on being able to run trains on any part of the layout. To give the North London feel to the layout of the lines climbing out of King's Cross up towards Hertfordshire, I've employed gradients of 1 in 80, which allows me to feature the flyover and the cut under. And with the tracks returning to datum level, these are hidden underneath the loco shed, which features a large chunk of the south end of the layout. This is the scenic break for the main lines, approximately 2/3 down the length of the scenic section. Over to the left we have D3312, a Class 08 on the loco shed head shunt, and underneath are the 2 tracks that go to and from East London and Temper Mills. Down below on the right hand side is the route to King's Cross, seen here with a Deltic heading the up Hull Pullman, consisting of Pullman vehicles and BR Mark II coaching stock. Emerging from the East London direction is 1790, a brush 4 with the 6E43 North Fleet Cement Works heading back towards the Midlands with a MGR service. So everything basically that runs through the scene is based on prototypical operation. Heading further south down the layout, we've gone past the commercial area, milk distribution depot, back street garages, scrap merchants and plenty of slum clearance sites. And as we approach the depot, Hornsey Road depot, which is based on Finsbury Park, that's where the inspiration came from. This is the south end of the layout, featuring Hornsey Road depot, which from the outset was designed to cover the return gradients back up to datum level. It's a loco shed based on Finsbury Park but in a mirror image form, and for a little bit of ambient background sound I use a Model Sounds standalone speaker with some recordings captured on an SD card. Here we are at the scenic break on the southern end of the layout, and London has been a fascinating place for seeing a wide variety of motive power. Here we see a Class 74 heading a rake of 21-ton mineral wagons in the northbound direction, whilst the Class 37 heads towards East London with a rake of tank wagons and mixed freight, including a couple of 08s there destined for Stratford work, through a hole in the wall into a 180-degree curve and comes out on the other side of the room where the storage sidings are located. Mixed freight heading towards East London. The two furthest tracks are the up and down East London line. The nearest track is the down King's Cross, and adjacent to that is the up King's Cross. Here we see a Class 47 at the head of the Yorkshire Pullman, and heading in the opposite direction on the last leg of its journey to King's Cross is an express hauled by Kestrel and a rake of Mark I coaching stock. And the track in the middle is for suburban services to Broad Street. It's the extension of the up slow. The Class 501 on its return from Broad Street heading back to Watford used the crossover to gain access to the down slow and shuttle between the station and this end curve. As we see the Class 501 going over the flyover and forming the Broad Street to Hornsey Broadway terminating service, it's probably a good time to mention the concept behind the layout. The LNER built the Northern Heights Railway in 1867 from Finsbury Park to Edgware with plans to take it as far as Bushey and even to Watford Junction. But with the advent of World War II and later the Greenbelt Act, these plans were shelved. Some of the line was built but never actually used, and at a later date it was taken over by London Transport, part of the Northern Line today. The section from Highgate to Finsbury Park remained open until 1970, mainly used for the transfer of London Transport stock between Highgate Depot and Drayton Park. With a little bit of background history to the project, this might have been scenario gives a good excuse to run a cross section of Great Northern, LMR DC lines EMUs, and some interregional freight from East London heading back towards the Midlands. Here we see a Class 47 on an Anglo-Scottish Express, a sleeper service on the last leg of its journey to King's Cross, coming down the bank and entering Hornsey Tunnel. Control of the layout is by variable DC conventional gauge master controllers with section switches on the panels and isolation sections all around the layout. All point control is good old-fashioned H&M solenoid motors, and I must say they've been so reliable over the years. I've never had a problem with them. The layout plays host to a large selection of rolling stock. Here we see a 6-car Craven's DMU on an all stations to Welwyn Garden City, and these formed the mainstay along with the non-corridor loco haul stock of the main suburban trains in and out of King's Cross. The Class 501s play an important part on the layout, reinforcing that North London flavour. They ran from London Euston to Watford Junction and from Broad Street to Richmond. So in this scenario, a direct link between Broad Street and Watford Junction would have feasibly seen these in regular everyday use. There's a 501 taking the upslope towards Broad Street. By 1970, the loco haul suburban services would have been in the hands of Brush Type 2s, but because there's a distinct lack of them on the layout at the moment, I'm using Baby Deltics, which would have been seen in the 1960s. And here we see D5905 heading towards King's Cross with a rake of compartment non-corridor stock, probably formed of an inner suburban service from Hatfield or Welwyn Garden City. The outer suburban sets would have been lavatory CLs. And in the opposite direction, heading north, we have D5909 hauling the Cambridge Buffet, comprising of Mark 1 stock and a Grizzly Buffet in the consist. As this video draws to a close, we take a last look at the station area, and there's still a lot of development work going on in the background above the retaining wall. And here we see a Class 25 hauling the up mail train, consisting of various post office vehicles and other parcel stock. There's still a long list of things to do on the layout. As well as scenic development work, there's a long list of locomotive and other rolling stock projects in the pipeline. So I hope to bring you news of these in future videos, and in the meantime please visit emgauge70s.co.uk, where there will be monthly updates and you can keep abreast of the developments on all of the EM gauge layouts that are featured. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you've enjoyed it. The selection of clips, stills and track plans are available to view on the website in a larger format. So no need to pause every time you see something that might be of interest. There'll be future videos to cover on the storage yard and the developments around the station. So please keep an eye out on the website and on my YouTube channel for future updates. Thank you very much. Cheers for now.